Welcome to Turn Talks, the podcast that bridges the gaps between college and career. Join your host, Tina Fox, founder of Turn Mentoring, as she brings together corporate leaders, educators, and university alumni to share practical wisdom and equip you with confidence, clarity, and connection.
Hi, everyone. This is Tina Fox, the founder and CEO of Turn Mentoring, and you're joining us today for Turn Talks. This is another new friend of mine, Jordana Cole. I'm very excited to get to know her on today's Turn Talks because we actually met in a unique space. So Jordana is somebody who is not only the founder of Ignited, which we will talk about that later, but I met her because I happened to be in Vienna, Virginia, and I was at a TEDx pitch forum where there were contestants that were on stage and we got to hear them pitch 2 minutes. But in the audience and on the panel of judges was Jordana. And that's because Jordana is one of the top 10% of the most globally viewed TEDx's herself. And so, of course, during break, we had a chance to chit chat and I loved hearing about her background. And she's got energy. She's got tons of energy. So y'all are going to feel that today. But I'd like to welcome Jordana to Turn Talks. Welcome.
Thank you. Oh man, I gotta bring it. I gotta plug in over here to make sure the energy's on full charge.
I have no doubt. I'm looking at the guitars hanging in your background. I'm
Yeah.
like, nothing but energy. It's like creative energy, musical energy, all sorts of stuff. So the other thing is I had a chance to learn that Jordana also has a nickname. And I wanted to kick off with that because it's Jordana Rama Cole.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you have been a person by day and you have been a person by not day. So can you give us a little bit about this name, Jordana Rama Cole?
Yeah, I joke that any good superhero, you've got your normal identity and you've got your superhero identity. So Jordana Cole is my Bruce Wayne and Jordana Rama Cole is my Batman.
Okay.
So where that comes from is I did improv comedy for over a decade with Comedy Sports. So for anybody who's seen Whose Line Is It Anyway, Wild and Out, or who has gone to Comedy Sports, I spent my Friday and Saturday nights after working all week performing unscripted shows on spot for a live audience. And we get introduced with a nickname. You can kind of create your own, or people kind of give you suggestions for it. And mine became Jordana Rama. And part of that, my name is long, but I also think of my name rhymes with banana. And there used to be when you were a kid, Jordana, Fana, Faux Fana, me, my, mo, that whole thing. So I went with Jordana Rama and I don't know, it works.
I love it. I love it. So let's talk about who you were during the day, because today you are the founder of Ignited.
Yeah.
And you're a leadership coach, you're a consultant, you're a workshop facilitator, you're also a learning and development strategist, which is a lot of things. And you do all of this because you want to empower leaders to transform behaviors that unlock team potential and drive business results.
Yes.
And so that is your non-CAPE day. And then you did this thing at night. So I've got a lot of questions about the improv stuff in a second. And I find that fascinating. But talk to me about, your day job and what it is that you have this passion for that you go out and do with Ignited. And I told the audience a lot about you. I mean, even the name of your company, Ignited, she just brings the energy. So tell us a little bit about what you do during the day.
Yeah, it changes every single day. So as you mentioned, I like to do a lot of different things, but ultimately I am somebody who likes to create transformation and impact. And I've realized that we spend more time at work than anywhere else as adults. And every single one of us has a leader in some sort of capacity, but not only in our professional lives. There's leaders in our community, there's leaders in our families, and leaders have the most influence on us, not only in our professional success, but how sometimes we see ourselves, how we go about every single day. And what's interesting is, and we can talk all about my career arc because it's been a windy one. It's not linear. I call it a roller coaster. What I realized in the kind of learning space and in the corporate learning space, it's different than the higher education or K-12 learning space where you're just kind of given information, you learn, you take tests, that sort of thing. In the corporate learning space, it's really focused on skills. But the problem is learning about skills doesn't actually create skills. So I started thinking about, okay, how do we actually apply skills? How do we actually change as human beings? And I brought in my experience in leadership, my experience with psychology, I have a graduate degree, and I have focused everything I do around behavioral change, but not just behavioral change that happens once, behavioral change that sticks, and behavioral change that spreads. And for me, leaders are that mechanism to ignite that spread. And I am the mechanism that helps to ignite leaders and teams. So on any given day, I can be doing the following: having one-on-one coaching conversations with a leader. Maybe they are at transition point in their career and they're not sure what they want to do next. Or maybe they're struggling with some situations and leading their team and they're trying to get more engagement from their team. Or maybe they've just gotten promoted to a new level and they're navigating what they thought they knew with where they're going next. Then I might be doing a global workshop. So I might be leading a virtual workshop online for people from all across the globe within an organization, helping them lead and navigate change better as a leadership group. And then I might be having a conversation with one of my clients who I consult on their employee engagement strategy or their learning and development program for onboarding and for managers, or just kind of talking about how they're thinking about driving strong performance and engagement on their team on a day-to-day basis. And then I'm posting on LinkedIn and sharing just different nuggets here and there. So I work with a lot of different people. I work in a lot of different capacities. I span organizations from 10-person nonprofits to 300,000-person food and beverage companies. I work with everybody from frontline leadership to all the way up to senior VP or the C-suite. But the thing underneath it all is, how do they build the right behaviors and habits so that they can be the best leader that they can be, and they can help bring out the right behaviors and habits in their team that brings out people's potential and drives momentum for themselves and their organizations. So yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Every employee out there says thank you for helping to culture through leadership and behavioral change. So that's where Jordana is today. And I wanted to start with that today because I am going to back up to what you said a minute ago. And you're like, oh, I'm happy to talk about anything, because my route was not linear. It was a roller coaster. And in that roller coaster, you started at GW undergrad. Yes?
Yes,
Okay.
I did.
And you were in international affairs?
Yep.
Okay.
You did your homework, Tina.
You did GW. Well, I'd love to know where people started because, our audience is filled with the collegiate minds.
Yeah.
And we've got people from all over the United States going to different colleges. You just happened to go to an outstanding college here in Washington, D.C. You did not stop there. You decided to best yourself at UPenn.
Yeah.
And you got your master's at UPenn. So you're a real dummy is what I'm telling the audience. So Jordana just does not have a brain in her head. She just doesn't know. But
nerd alert.
all joking aside, I was going to say the coolest part is that she's super smarty. She has applied herself to this amazing business in leadership, behavioral change, culture building, and empowering teams. But your route was not linear. Your route was circuitous. And one of the things that I loved is I started this podcast talking about the fact that you are one of the top 10% globally viewed TEDx talks. And your title was What to Do When You Don't Know What to Do Next.
Yeah.
And that applies to everything that you just said. You said, I can work with teams as small as 10 up to 300,000. You can work with C-suite. You can work with these people. And you gave examples of, and sometimes somebody's just promoted and they don't know what to do next. Or sometimes somebody's been in a role and they're looking to backfill their role and they don't know what to do next. Or somebody's in a role and they're trying to get everybody around, to be on the same team and have the same mindset, and they don't know what to do next. And so I want to address your circuitous route and what to do next, because there's a lot of people in higher ed that are like, I've been doing this, going to school, going to class, checking in, doing my homework, doing my tests. And now all of a sudden I'm going to get this degree and I don't know what to do next.
Yep.
So let's start with your circuitous route.
Yeah. So first off, none of us know what to do next, even the people who tell you what to do next. Yeah. So you're right. I went to GW. I studied international affairs, and a little bit of the backstory on that. When I was in high school, my high school offered 3 foreign languages, and I found that I loved foreign languages. So I decided to take all 3. I was the first student to take all 3 at one time. I thought when I went to college that I was going to become a translator or an interpreter or do something along the lines with that in international business. And I was actually torn of where to go to school. I had finalized to two schools, GW and UW Madison. This is like my sliding doors moment. My entire life would have been different if I had gone to UW Madison. I actually had deposits in both places. I had no idea where I want to go. I was really, really torn. And my homeroom teacher said to me, for what you are good at, for what you love, you have to go to GW. And I listened to her. And we can talk about whether or not I should have, whatever. And that's a mentoring moment. I listened to her and I get to GW. Within my first week at school, my entire reason for being there gets thrown out the window because I went because they have a really rigorous language requirement at the Elliott School. You had to complete to a junior level year of proficiency in a language. My primary language was French. I go into the placement and I immediately placed out. So I go, oh, now what? I already met that requirement. Do I take a new language? Do I go further? Except the only French classes that were available were things in like French literature. I'm talking like medieval French literature, not like actually using French in a day-to-day basis. I decide to take the highest level of French kind of grammar and writing that they had that was above the requirement. I get into that class. I am one of two freshmen in a room of 30. Everybody else is seniors. Every single person in that room has been to France, except for me. I had only ever been out of the US to Canada and Mexico. And they are all like, the professor is speaking fluently, and they're all speaking, and I am lost. Because I could speak coherently, and I was really good at writing, but I didn't have an environment where in high school we spoke French. Like we didn't really speak it in the classroom. And I had an identity crisis because suddenly I'm not good at this thing. What do I do with this? Should I even be in this major? Because I was also taking an intro to international affairs course and I didn't like it. I was like, this is about politics. This is like model UN. This is not what I thought this would be. I'm more into like international culture and thinking about media and business. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay at GW. I wasn't sure if I wanted to change my major. And ultimately, I decided to stick with it, and here's why. My major at that school was a very broad interdisciplinary liberal arts major. So you had to take courses in things like political science, history, econ, anthropology, foreign languages, mash them all together. And when I looked at other majors, I would have to take like 20 courses in poli-sci or 20 courses in business. And I liked a lot of different things. I didn't see one thing that I was like, I would like that enough to really, really focus. So I said, you know what? I am going to treat this as a gift and kind of figure out a way to cobble together a major with the requirements that is really interesting to me, allows me to learn, allows me to explore. And with this freed up elective space that I have right now, let me actually take things that I wouldn't have otherwise had to take, like classes in theater or classes in psychology, just because it's interesting. So what I wound up majoring in was international affairs. But when I actually think about what it was at its core, it was people studies. And ironically, I graduated with a degree in international affairs, having only taken one course in the international affairs department. Yes, I'm serious.
So this is okay for anybody who's listening. This is a little secret. Like you think that there's a name for something for a reason, and you make up stuff in your own head as to what that reason is. And Jordana just blew that wide open and was like, you can graduate from GW, at least at your time, with an international affairs degree, having only taken one class, but having done human studies, which I would argue that probably has served you tremendously well, because no matter what business you go into, even AI these days, you are going to have to deal with humans at some point. There is some human that's being affected by whatever it is, whatever number you're crunching, data you're organizing, code you're doing. There's a human that is affected.
You nailed it.
So I'm thinking this is good. But you had the foresight, and you had the wherewithal to do that. Not everybody thinks that way, number one. So I'm glad that you're pulling that out. And number two, even if they did think that way, there might be a lot of pressure. Did you have any pressure from parents or anybody else, the advisors that were like, Jordana, no, that's too broad. You need to really the riches are in the niches. You got to narrow this thing down. Like, did anybody say that to you and take you off course a little bit? Or you were lucky that you got to do what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I was definitely lucky. I mean, the place where almost taken off course. At one point, I wanted to be a theater major because I discovered a love of student theater in college. And my parents were like, absolutely not. So I had to figure out a way that I could weave those theater courses into my degree and still explore and enjoy theater. So that's what I did. I actually didn't get that because I was making it work within the confines of the program.
Okay.
So I was I was kind of the person I was coloring in the lines, but I was looking at how can I just slightly go outside? And what was interesting is halfway through my career there, the program changed. So they actually changed the requirements moving forward. But because I think I was first semester junior year, they gave us the option to go via the old path or the new path. And the old path gave me more flexibility. So I said, I'm sticking with that. So I fit it in the mold, but was able to tailor it to me. And I think the reason why people didn't push me so hard was because I placed out of the language requirement. That was my reason for being there. And when that kind of
good point. Very good point. Yes.
I had to figure something else out. Now, what I will say is I did want to transfer before I made all those changes, and that was another barrier. I wanted to go out to California. My parents were like, nope. So I had to figure out a way to make it work within GW in a way that still felt good to me and I could do the things that I was interested in. I took some really cool courses. So I graduated. I had no idea what I wanted to do. No idea what I wanted to do. No idea what I wanted to be. I was working while I was in college, so I was a work-study student. I had loans, I had grants, so I needed a job, full stop. That was and I had been working since I was 14 years old in different ways. So I just started applying to anything that seemed interesting. I could have a conversation. Actually, my first job out of college was at a collegiate honor society. It was a nonprofit. It was 17 people. And my first job was literally the front desk person. I was the administrative assistant making pennies. But what was super cool about that as my first job was at age 23, I was managing 30 interns. Actually, at age 22, not even 23, at 22, I was managing 30 interns. At age 23, I was managing 6 full-time staff members. And I was managing national programs, mentoring programs, scholarship programs, award programs. And that really kicked off a love of leadership for me. And even being in that role, I didn't have a plan. I've never been a 20-year plan person. I've never even been a 5-year person. My plan is, what do I like doing? What do I not like doing? What's next? So I'm in that job. I loved working with students. I thought I wanted to become a guidance counselor. So I wound up leaving that nonprofit and going back to my alma mater to become an academic advisor. And the reason I became an academic advisor partially was because I had had such a bad experience with guidance counseling in my high school that I wanted to be a difference maker for students. And I had also seen so many students come in with this rigid path that I wanted to help them explore in the way that I did. So I worked at GW. I started taking auditing classes that I would needed for the master's degree to become a guidance counselor. Realized immediately that I did not like this at all. Not for me. And I was kind of dejected and demotivated in a job in a way that I never have been. Here I am. I've come to make this difference for students, and most students just want to come to my office to get a form signed or to get me to remove a hold. And, I'm somebody who's really into growing things and building things. And I'm in an organization where there's a lot of order and hierarchy and system. And I remember a friend of mine, I was telling him this story and how frustrated I was that students, really didn't want to leverage me. And he said to me, but I bet there are students that are. Find them. And he was spot on. And on that day, I made a goal for myself where I said, okay, no matter how long I'm here, if by the time I leave, I can reflect back and honestly feel like I made a positive difference in at least one student's life, then it was worth it. And with that mindset, I joined forces with another academic advisor, and we started a student organization that turned into a nonprofit that he still runs to this day, where we were pairing students. I was in the honors program, he was in the business school. We were pairing students with local kids in the DC area for mentoring, for tutoring, to bring them to college and see what a college campus was like. And this was some of what I had done in the nonprofit. So I was kind of bringing it to life in a local way and in a meaningful way. And I had great relationships with at least a handful of students who I feel like I really helped them on their path. So once again, going, now what? And okay, I like education. I love students. Don't want to be a guidance counselor. I don't like working in a university. So I just kind of started, looking at jobs, going back to nonprofit. And I stumbled across a for-profit company that worked in the education space. They made technology for at the higher education level that was software that helped schools recruit, enroll, and retain students. And on the K-12 level was software that helped provide students with college and career pathways, guidance, learning that they can work on with their parents and with their guidance counselor. And my experience having worked in higher ed in a university and, having worked with students was very attractive to them. So it was kind of like I kept cascading up where it's like, okay, I'm working with the students and now I'm supporting the people who support the students. So I went into a role where I basically kind of managed a suite of university relationships where I was their partner in how to best leverage our tools and how to meet their recruitment and enrollment and retention goals. And what you'll notice is I was a leader. I wasn't a leader. I wasn't a leader. Well, guess what? I went back to leadership. So about 2 years into that, I got promoted into a manager role again. And that time, my team size grew. We merged a couple teams together, and I was basically leading a team of people like me in that role, but also people who were helping with some of the technical, like frontline support requests that came in. And I was a couple years in my job, and I started feeling burnt out, and I didn't know why. And we took at a management retreat, StrengthsFinder, and I started thinking about like, what does this mean about me? What does this say about me? And I reflected on, okay, I've had different jobs. There hasn't been a clear path, but what's the through line? What are the things that energize me? What are the things I gravitated to where I would raise my hand and go, I want to be involved in that? What are even kind of like the places thinking about from high school and college that like I would get involved in extracurricularly and why? And what does this have to do with my strengths? Like, how could I connect these things? And I realized that what I love doing is helping people see their own potential and capability and bringing it out of them. And while I could do that as a manager, more of my day to day was less about bringing out of people and putting out fires, like dealing with customer escalations and managing those types of relationships and managing numbers and things like that. And as I was telling a friend of mine this story later on, she goes, "Oh, that makes sense. You're a fire starter who was in a job where she was a firefighter." And I mean, she nailed it. So yeah, burnt out, not loving this. And I realized too, like, I've always been someone that's about impact. I like being broad. I like helping as many people as possible. That was part of the reason I became an advisor. I almost left my company. I got an offer from another company. And my CEO and our chief HR officer came to me and after I talked to my VP, and she was like, "Is there any chance we can keep you?"
Yeah.
And they said, "Look, what's it going to take?" And I had done a lot of soul searching. And I realized I didn't want to be in that job anymore. But I also realized that I had to know what I did want. And again, it wasn't like I want this 20-year plan. It's
Mhm.
what do I know about myself that I like? And what do I want next? And if I'm somebody that wants to make impact, where do I want to make impact? And where have I gotten the most joy out of the things that I've done? And where have I added the most value? And what I realized was it was in the leadership space, and I wanted to help other people become better leaders. So I told them this. I said, look, we're a global organization. We have 400 people. We've just started doing some like professional development, but I think that's the space I want to go into. I want to help build that out and help people, help our leaders become the best leaders that they can be so that we can, really create a great team and drive strong results for the business. And oh, by the way, I want to go back to school and get my master's degree in this thing called applied positive psychology and bring what I learn into this work. And oh, also, by the way, we have a partnership with Gallup where we have the strengths products in our K-12 offering for students to help them understand the strengths. And we have it as a staff where we take it, but it just becomes this thing where we've taken it
We don't
and
do anything with it.
yep, and that's nice. And then what? Let me transform. Let me turn us into a strengths-based culture. Let me actually embed this in how we operate and let us live this. And they said to me, you know, we will take a leap of faith on you if you take a leap of faith on us. And it might not look 100% the way that you've kind of mapped it out, but we're willing to give it a shot. And despite having no background in learning and development and only just being the person who raises their hand to volunteer, to train and public speak and teach, they gave me my first opportunity to move into that space.
Did they pay for you to go to UPenn too?
They paid for a big chunk of it, yeah.
Okay, so I have to pause because that was definitely a roller coaster. What happened in college and being able to carve your own thing and saying, I'm going to stay on the old track because it serves me. One of the things that, I heard in all of your description of starting as a leader, not being a leader, going back to leadership, figuring out, well, I definitely don't like that. This doesn't feel good. Is I heard two things. I heard you change your mind.
Mhm.
So you have altered your mindset, even though you're like, this is definite. I do not want to do guidance counseling. Like
Yep.
nobody is leveraging me, but you heard in a momentary mentorship through your friend, you heard him say, well, go find the ones who are, because there are some that are doing it.
Yeah.
And so that was enough of a paradigm shift for you where you're like, he has a point. Let me change my mind. Let me go see what I can do about that. So
Yep.
I heard you changing your mind several times,
Yep.
but always in a way where you're seeking something that is going to not only serve you, but serve others.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I heard you say, or not say, but the other thing that I recognize in everything that you've gone through is this resiliency,
Mm.
which today a lot of students ask about that resilience. They don't know how you become resilient, but that is one of the top questions we are asked
Mm.
is
Mm.
how do you just become resilient? And, I always say, well, resiliency isn't something that, you train for in a course. Resiliency is life happening with you, to you, for you. And as it's happening, you find out that there are lows as well as highs. And when you're in a low, you want to get back up to not being in a low. And so that bounce back is the resiliency, but it's practiced.
Mhm.
It's practice. It's not something you go and train for. Training is different,
Yeah.
right? Practice is you just show up and all of a sudden you find yourself in like a situation, you got to deal with it. But you are very, very resilient and you had a positive mindset in which you were willing to change it early and often. And you were willing to really figure out what works for you and what doesn't work for you.
Yes. I mean, you're spot on. And I actually love what you just said about training and practice because that's my whole mindset around the work I do. It's not
Yeah.
training, it's practice. That's what behavioral change comes from. It comes from practice. Yes, we need a little bit of knowledge, but it's the
You don't know
practice.
how good a non-UPenn grad feels. A UPenn grad is affirming right now. So thank you, Jordana. Yeah. Yeah. So it is practice. So you are working with them in the practice
Yeah.
of their behaviors.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where the
And
discovery lies.
and that's where the habits form. So like resilience, like to your point, I mean, look, I studied resilience a lot in my graduate program. Like, I can tell you the scientific research behind resilience. I can tell you some of the, different things that you can do to train in resilience, but you're actually spot on. It's not about becoming resilient. We are resilient. And, the kind of crux of all of this, and when I think about why I've been able to make these leaps, it does come from this space of being an improviser for me. One of the things I say in my TEDx talk is that improvisers are who we are. None of us are walking around with a script. You might have a plan, but when it comes down to it, the exact conversation that you're having, the exact moment that you're experiencing, you couldn't have predicted every moment.
Okay, so I'm just going to tee up my audience right here because
Yeah.
everything you've said is fascinating. But I did have the privilege of listening to your TEDx talk, and I loved the whole idea around improvisation. So, as you all know, if you're going to go up and do a TEDx talk, you are not promoting yourself, you're not promoting a product or a service, you're not doing a motivational talk. You are spreading an idea that is worthy of spreading and that goes viral. And if your idea goes viral, you become like Jordana Cole and you end up becoming part of the top 10% worldwide. So in her talk, this is where it's like, dial in right now because she's getting ready to tell you about this whole concept of improvisation and how we just don't know. So I interrupted you because I just wanted to make sure that if anybody's listening, they're like, ooh, I got to turn it up right now. This is where they're going to turn it up. So what to do when you don't know what to do next? And this whole concept and idea around improvisation. Please enlighten us.
Yeah. So, first off, you should always be my hype person. Can you just come with me to every talk I do? I love this. All right. So, yeah, the core thing that we are as human beings is improvisers. None of us is walking around with a script. None of us is walking around with an instruction manual. Literally from day one, when we decide to put our hand in our mouth or we wail about this.
And as a
Or
parent, I will say yes, 100%. And I have messed up so many times. So yes, I am one of the many.
Yeah, or when you're a little kid and you're twirling around and making up songs, or you're me and you still do that on a day-to-day basis because it's fun. We are improvisers. It's who we are. We just forget it. And the thing that I love about being an improviser is, guess what? AI is not an improviser. AI has pattern. That is the one thing that AI can't do that is uniquely human. It can't improvise because it's all pattern recognition and taking in codes and taking in prompts. This is what makes us human. And actually, I think tapping into your inner improviser and remembering that inner improviser is what makes you resilient. The whole thing about improv is I don't know what's going to happen when I get on that stage. I don't know what the audience is going to say to me. I don't know what my scene partners are going to say to me. I might have a plan in my head of where I think it's going to go. And 2 seconds later, someone says something and that plan is now out the window. And I have to adjust and I have to adapt. And I can do it in a way that brings friction and frustration to myself, that brings friction and frustration to the people I'm on the stage with, that brings friction and frustration to the audience because I'm holding on to this plan that I was obsessed with or freaking out that it's not going right or it went wrong or this happened. Or I can approach it with acceptance that that plan no longer exists. And all I can do is focus on this present moment and move forward with the people that I'm with, aligned to my strengths, aligned to my values, and with that core purpose of connecting and building and creating a great show and creating a great scene. And if it doesn't work out, that's okay. So that kind of has been the crux, and I didn't see this back then.
That is so
Yeah.
beautiful. That is so beautifully said because you're right. The way you framed it about how you could create friction and frustration. Those were such good words for me personally, because you talked about friction and frustration for yourself, friction and frustration for those that are on stage with you, and then even the audience members. And I physically could feel constraint and anxiety when you were describing that, because I was like, why would anybody want to do that? Why would anybody want to hold on to the controls so tight and I'm saying this, I'm guilty.
Me too.
Right? Why would anybody want to do, and I'm so recognizing my own patterns here. Why would anybody want to do that so bad? And you help me see it in a different way where what it's creating is friction and frustration for all of those around you, including yourself. Why not go with what you are inherently born with, which is the ability to improvise, even though it could feel, and I think when people hear the word improvise, Jordana, they hear it's like scratchy. It's like so uncomfortable. It's like, oh, what's going to happen next? But you just reframed it and you don't know what's going to happen next no matter what.
Yep. Yep. We don't. I mean, look at the last few years. I feel like every week something is happening that I'm just like, okay, then. Like, literally, if the aliens came down tomorrow and had a dance party, I'd be like, yep, that tracks. This is where we've been headed. And I think that this time has been so disruptive for people because we've been under the belief that, like, if I just have a solid plan, I can make it happen. Or, if I just tick the boxes on doing these right things, it will result in this. But we're not in control. And I think that this kind of timeline has shown us, oh, actually, things change around us that we have no control over. And the only thing that we can do is adapt to that. And I've had a lot of, my life is not, what I thought it would be. There's different things that have happened along the way that have been hard. I've had times where jobs have gone away, not of my own choosing. The only thing I can choose in that moment is how I respond and what I build from it. Do I let that crush me? Do I fight back against it? And that's where the friction is. That's not going to change that this is a reality. How do I accept, even if I don't like it, how do I accept the reality and build what's there? How do I reconnect with what's important to me, what I value, what my strengths are, where I get energy, and then build from there? And that doesn't mean that everything works out.
What you just shared was not only the recognition of the fact that we are not in control, and if the last few years hasn't proven that to the world, then I don't know what will. But that you have so the recognition is important. And then you just transferred into, and this is how, because that's what people are going to ask is like, okay, so I believe in what you say, Jordana. I accept the fact that things will change. I accept the fact that I need to adapt, but how? And there is a quote, I'm going to quote you. This is a Jordana quote that she uses in her TEDx: play the scene you're in, not the one you want to be in.
Yeah.
That was so powerful to me. Because it does bring everybody talks about, oh, just be in the present. People that are always thinking about the future and do have like goals set out for 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year. They're like, okay, well, so are you telling me not to have my goals? And I don't even understand how to be in the present. So we've gone from recognition to how. And that quote of playing into the scene that you're in and not the one that you want to be. Talk to me a little bit more about that scene and talk to me a little bit more about the how.
Yeah. And thank you for bringing that up. And thank you even for this isn't about don't have goals. It's not about don't have goals. I think having goals is a good thing. Having a direction, having kind of a North Star for yourself is a good thing. It's recognizing that the path to that goal might look different because of the reality that you're in. And it's also being okay with the fact that sometimes that goal might change as you grow and as things change around you. And for me, I focus a lot more on goals, less about what do I want to be by a certain age or title or dollar, and more about who do I want to be and how do I want to show up? And
not the extrinsic, the intrinsic.
Yeah, the intrinsic. Because when you get to that, there are so many more pathways of potential. There's so many more possibilities in making that work. And then when things do change that make that more difficult, guess what? You can adapt. So, I'll be very, very vulnerable. I got married at a young age. I thought I would have a family. I was unable to have kids. I went through 4 years of IVF treatment unsuccessfully. Me and my husband got divorced a couple of years ago. So I had this map for my life that was going to be, all right, I'm going to have a family. This is the person that I'm going to be with. And suddenly, I had a goal, and I had resources and effort to put in to make that goal possible. And it didn't happen. So I could have just wailed at the universe for this being my lot, but that wouldn't accomplish anything. The reality, the scene that I am in, is that this path isn't working for me. So then what are the things that are in my control that I could do? Well, I have different choices and different choices that I could pursue, whether it be things like adoption or surrogacy or fostering. Or I could zoom out and go, okay, what makes that so important to me? Well, I love helping people grow. And are there other ways that I can make that happen? And are there other things that I'd be willing to try? And that's ultimately the kind of path that I went down. And that might not be right for everybody, but that was right for me. And when I went down that path, it also wasn't looking back at the other pathways with regret, because I those choices were gone. I couldn't make those choices. I couldn't change the past. All that I can change right now is moving forward. So if you're in a position where you're in a job that you don't like, you have options. Your options are, okay, the reality we're in, the scene we're in is, this is the job. I'm in it right now. I don't like it. Can't change those things. What you can change, are there things about your job that you do like? The people that you're with, interesting work that you're doing. How could you do more of that? Are there things that are important to you in your life that this job allows you to do more of? Like, okay, I don't have to work a lot of long hours. So that means that I can spend time on my hobbies outside of work. I can spend time with my friends. I could spend time in my family. That's why I go to this place that I don't love, because it lets me have the time and resources to do the things that I do love. Or should I make a change?
So you introduced us in your own life and stories to not only resiliency and the power of mindset, but through your vulnerability, you just now introduced two other things about Jordana Cole that I really love, and that is that you have a positivity about you and a gratitude about you, even in situations that you're just like, come on, like, what else do I need to do? I've thrown everything in the kitchen sink at this. But you have a level of positivity and gratitude. But the other thing that you have and that you're sharing, which I actually think is something that unfortunately is lacking today, is accountability. And everything you just shared, even though, like you said, you could have said, and this is happening to me.
Mm,
And why to me? You didn't do that. You flipped it and you were like, and so this is the scene that I'm in, and this is what I'm being handed right now. And what am I doing in this? How am I learning in this? What can I do differently in this? There is a very high level of accountability that you hold yourself to, that I believe goes back to the resiliency, which
mm,
is the reason why you were able to be so resilient in this circuitous path that you took to where you are today, is because you held yourself accountable, even in the toughest of situations. You kept a positive attitude. You changed your mindset on things, and that's how you got from low to high every time.
mm,
It's
mm.
really amazing. And then this whole concept of improv, and that you embrace improv, this very scary thing that is so unknown, just so much that you've already provided. And just so you know, I don't know what ears are going to listen to this, but that thought that you had when you decided that you were going to be a counselor, you've definitely hit more than one on
Mm,
this
mm.
conversation. So thank you for going to that depth and bringing all of that forward on, hey, I don't have it figured out. I took the circuitous path. I'm making the best of it. I'm now teaching other people how to do this. I love developing others, seeing the potential in others, and I'm doing it through leadership. But it's through all these little pieces that you have pulled together in your life. And it's just amazing. It's just really amazing. So
Thank
thank you
you.
for that. Well, so I want to end on not just the improvisation, but you talked about choosing your response.
Yeah.
You talk about adaptation. You've also talked about energizing. This is that whole like igniting, energizing.
Mhm.
We started. this inner improv. So for somebody who's like an introvert or freaking out about, no, I don't do, like, what advice would you give to them on that?
Yeah. So the biggest advice that I can give to you is improv is just remembering how to play. It's reconnecting with the thing that you knew how to do when you were a kid. And that's what I actually think my superpower is, and what improv reminded me is I never forgot how to play. And when I the whole adaptability stuff that you're talking about, like that's been at the root. I think sometimes we take ourselves too seriously and the world feels very heavy, but we can show up playfully in any moment. And how I play and how you play is very, very different. For some people, they're big characters. For other people, they're building with like Legos. For other people, they're exploring in the woods. It doesn't matter. But reconnecting with that playful source is what helps you tap into what's possible when things are hard. And I'll even share like that's true with my business. So I was scared when I went on my own and started my business. Like I was working in organizations. I've been working since I'm 14 and now I'm responsible for my own salary. Like it's going to be a question mark of how I'm going to get clients. And I was putting a lot of pressure on myself to be successful, to hit this goal, to do X. Like I have to do this by X, like all the same things that like I was trying to work with students not to do. And then one day I flipped the switch for myself and I said to myself two things. I'm going to treat this like an experiment. Instead of, having to hit X, I'm going to treat this year as an experiment where I'm betting on myself and I'm going to allow myself to be playful with it. And at the end of the year, I'm going to ask myself two questions. Question one, did I make money where I was financially okay? Maybe not all the money in the world that I want to make, but did I have my needs met? And two, am I enjoying what I'm doing? And if the answer to both of those questions is yes, play on. And if the answer to either of those questions is no, okay, then reflect on what I learned from that experience. Be proud of taking that risk because jumping in risk experimentation, guess what? That's another form of play. And take away the insights and then make a different choice based on what I've learned. So you don't have to go to an improv school or take an improv class. What I want you to do is just take a couple minutes to give yourself permission to be playful, especially in those serious moments. Do it in a way that feels right to you. And at its core, when you are playful, you're present. You're present with yourself. You're present with activities. You're present with other people. And that's the opening that, you need to kind of face whatever's going to happen because whatever's going to happen is going to happen. But you get to choose. You have the agency. You get to choose how you show up in those moments.
I think we just had a part 2 of your TEDx, and it's gonna be play on. I mean, that was a mic drop moment. Play on. I heard that like it was thunder in my head. Play on. Yes. Everything has been so serious, and you're right. Play on is a brilliant way to think about improv. I'd never heard it thought of that way, and I'm an ambivert, so I'm like part extrovert, but I also need my time, my downtime. But if I was an introvert, I would be like, wow, that was really like simplified. And we all like to play. And so that is absolutely perfection. Okay. So I know after this, after people hear this, they're going to want to know how they can get in touch with you. So where do you want me to direct them for you? Certainly LinkedIn. LinkedIn is super easy, right? You're on LinkedIn. So anybody can go to LinkedIn, and I'm hoping you're answering LinkedIn. So I hope I don't steer them in the wrong direction. But where else can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is great. And I post things constantly about leadership thoughts, human thoughts. So please hang out with me there. You can check out my website, ignitedbyjordana.com. And there's a link that you can send me an email straight from there. So if you want to get in touch that way, you can. And if you want to take me home with you, then, put my TEDx talk on your bookmark bar and share it with other people in your life.
It's such a great TEDx talk. It's only 13 minutes and change. So she went underneath the 18 minutes. It's an awesome TEDx talk. Jordana, I've had so much fun with you on this chat today. And I knew when I met you, I was like, she does. And you did not disappoint on the energy, on ignited, on just dropping a ton of wisdom and making it so simple. But the best part of it all is play on. And I'm looking forward to playing on. I hope you all play this on repeat many times. For those of you interested, we'll have more Turn Talks, but I just want to say thank you again to my new friend, Jordana Cole. I just really had a wonderful time today. So until next time, we'll have everything printed underneath this for anybody who's interested in more. And we'll see you on the next TED Talk. So thank you, everyone. And thank you, Jordana.
Thanks, Tina.
Thank you for listening to Turn Talks. To learn more about our robust mentoring platform, visit us at turnmentoring.com. Join us next time for more enlightening conversations.